Hello human beings, PowerGamer here. What do you get when you take a popular Game Boy game that launched one of Nintendo's most iconic franchises and then combine it with a number? A reason not to sleep at night.
Kirby's Dream Land 2, one of the most misleading titles since the never-ending story. While it may look like a direct sequel to Kirby's Dream Land, you have to remember there was an entire other game in between. But just because it's not an accurate title doesn't mean it has no value. The fact that no one talks about it means it has no value. Yeah, no one talks about this game very much, at least not in comparison to the other early Kirby games, which I guess makes sense. We have the first one on the Game Boy, then the second one on the NES, and then the third one we go back to the Game Boy, which is odd, but why did they do this exactly? Honestly, I'm not really sure. I could barely find any information on this game's development cycle. All I could get was that while it was made for the Game Boy, it was heavily optimized for the Super Game Boy adapter, which would allow for more direct coloring than other games that would use it. And while it was still made by HAL, it was the first game in the series to not be directed by Masahiro Sakurai. In fact, he wasn't involved in this game at all. Instead, it was directed by Shinichi Shimomura, who worked as a map designer on Kirby's Adventure and would continue to work for HAL for a few more years before disappearing altogether. Seriously, no one knows what happened to this guy after 2002, so I hope he's okay. Well, Dream Land 2 was released on March 21st, 1995 in Japan, May 1st in North America, July 31st in Europe, and November 22nd in Australia. It didn't do as well as the other two games, but it still sold over 1 million units, so it was a financial success. Reception at the time was good, similar to Kirby's Adventure, though nowadays I don't see people discuss this game very often. And when they do, reception ranges from finding this game good to underwhelming. Though like the previous games, it was included in Kirby's Dream Collection for the Wii, which is how I'm going to be playing it today.
I don't really know what to expect from this game. I haven't seen that many people talk about it, and the few I have vary in terms of opinion. But the last game was on the NES, and this one is on the Game Boy, so will the inferior hardware cause a step back in quality, or will things only continue to improve?
The story this time involves the rainbow bridges that connect the 7 rainbow isles of Dreamland being destroyed by an evil spirit known as Dark Matter, who then possesses King Dedede, so Kirby has to stop it. But he gains assistance from 3 animals along the way: Rick the hamster, Coo the owl, and Kine the fish. That's really about it. We're back on the Game Boy, so the graphics are a step down from Kirby's Adventure, but thankfully they aren't a huge step down. This game still looks really impressive for being released on a crappy little brick, and the music is a lot more varied than it was in the first Dreamland, which is nice. The gameplay is a direct continuation from Kirby's Adventure. You move through levels so you can reach the exit and defend yourself by inhaling enemies and either spitting them out or copying their powers. Though that's where you get into the biggest difference with this game. Kirby's powers have been significantly reduced. Kirby's Adventure had a total of 24 different enemies that gave you copy abilities, but you wanna know how many Dreamland 2 has? 7. Yes, by default, Kirby can only use 7 copy abilities: Fire, Spark, Ice, Needle, Stone, Parasol, and Cutter. That's it. The vast majority of enemies in this game don't give you anything, so inhaling them is just extra ammo like it was in the first Dreamland. Now, the reason for this wasn't the inferior hardware. Actually, maybe it was, but I think it was to put emphasis on the game's new feature, the animal friends. Much like Donkey Kong Country, Kirby can find 3 different animals to help him out in his quest, that being the previously mentioned Rick, Coo, and Kine. In many of the levels, you can find one of these guys trapped in a burlap sack, and if you kill all the enemies on screen, you'll find them. These guys are what give you more powers like in the first game, since what ability you get changes depending on what animal friend you have. For example, the Spark ability with Kirby alone shoots electricity around him, but with Rick, it becomes the Beam ability from last time where you shoot a laser wave, with Coo, you shoot a laser beneath you, and with Kine, you shoot an exploding light bulb that also lights up dark areas. A lot of the abilities are lightless, and they vary in terms of usefulness. Some of these are really solid, but others feel too situational to be helpful, and a lot of them just feel like they're doing the same thing as the other ones.
The animal buddies giving you different powers isn't a bad idea, but because there's only 7 enemies in the game that actually gives you something, it makes you feel a lot more limited than in the last game. And on their own, they leave a lot to be desired.
By default, the animals give you different movement options. One's helpful, one's not, and one's both. Rick is just honestly not very good. He's basically Kirby, but a bigger target, and he can't float, so some areas are literally impossible to get to or escape from, so unless there's a power I find useful, I never bother with Rick. Coo is easily the best, since he allows Kirby to fly, which is much faster than floating, and it gives you much more control during these windy sections. And then Kine is basically the frog suit from Mario 3, since he gives you much better swimming controls, but on land, he's basically useless. The only majorly helpful thing the animal friends do is they basically serve as an extra life. If you run out of health, you lose the animal, but you get half or sometimes all of your health back for Kirby, which is nice. Though this doesn't apply if you fall in a pit, which will happen with Rick and Kine, since again, they can't float. I'm not really a huge fan of the animal friends. They're a decent idea, but the execution just makes Kirby feel a lot more limited. Kirby by default feels different from before. He can't dash anymore, and I'm really not a fan of that, though he can actually use his copy abilities while underwater, which is nice, though if you lose one, you can't can't inhale it without kind. Great. The game is divided into 7 total levels with 3 to 4 stages each, and once you beat them all, you face a boss. And like Kirby's Adventure, we get a cute little opening for each one. There's Grassland, Big Forest, Ripplefield, Iceberg, Red Canyon, Cloudy Park, and Dark Castle. There's not much to say about these levels because they are exactly what they sound like. The ice area, the grass area, the water area, the sky area, etc. I'm gonna say it, I'm not really a fan of this game's level design. Half it feels pretty simple, and since there aren't as many copy abilities, it's not as fun to explore, and the other half is honestly really annoying. I never thought I would describe a Kirby game as cheap, but there are many levels in this game that have enemies that come falling out of nowhere, moments where you can't escape if you have a certain animal friend, or auto-scrollers with dead ends that you can't see. So playing this game just overall isn't as enjoyable to me as Kirby's Adventure, or even Dreamland 1. And that's not even getting into the boss fights. I don't know what happened here, but these things are way more annoying than they were in the other games. Like before, the copy abilities barely do anything, and you want to rely on the stars, or whatever you can inhale that they shoot out. Problem is, there's only one attack that gives you something to hit them with, and what attacks they do are random, so a lot of the time, it's completely luck-based on whether or not you can actually hit them. So with both the bosses and mini-bosses, you can take them out very quickly, or spend several minutes trying to kill these things. This game retains the same health system as the last two, where Kirby can only take 6 hits before dying. Now, before, I didn't mind this, but here, it's way worse because of how much more annoying the levels and boss fights are, so I ended up getting way more game overs than previously. And extra lives are not as plentiful unless you grab 7 of these stars, which aren't super common, or reach the top row of the ending screen, which is way more picky than last time. I seriously didn't make it to the top until I reached Cloudy Park, the 6th area of the game.
I don't really know what happened here, but this game ended up being a lot more annoying than I thought it was gonna be, which is something I never thought I would say about a frickin' Kirby game, but here we are, I guess. Now it's time to go over the boss fights. This isn't gonna be fun.
Grassland has another fight with Wispy Woods, who I'm just gonna assume is the first boss of every Kirby game, and the only change is he can now summon spikes from the ground. Big Forest has Naruff and Nelly, a big boar with a bunch of little boars you have to use for ammo while they run back and forth and spit bombs. Ripplefield has Sweet Stuff, a giant anglerfish that shoots starfish and shockwaves that's nearly impossible without Kine. Then Iceberg has the Ice Dragon, which is when they start to get annoying. He freezes you with ice breath, shoots little crystals, and summons icicles, which are your only means of defending yourself, and sucking them isn't very easy. Red Canyon has Mr. Shine and Mr. Bright, a sun and moon that shoot fireballs, blades, and summon stars. And Cloudy Park has, no, not Kracko again. Yep, the cloud from Dreamland 1 is back, and somehow even more annoying. The only projectile are these eyeballs that don't spawn very often, and he has 2 phases, one where he pops out of the ground, and another where he flies back and forth. This fight goes on for ages, and I hate it. After that, we finally reach Dark Castle, which is home to the most annoying stages and enemies in the game. But here's the thing, there's one prominent feature I haven't mentioned yet, the rainbow drops. Hidden in each area is one of these rainbow drops, which require specific abilities in order to grab, and you have to collect all of these in order to get the best ending. Getting these is an absolute pain, since many times the abilities or animal friends you need are not in those stages, so if you lose them, which is very easy to do in the case of the Red Canyon one, then you have to leave and come back. And some of these in the later levels can be really cryptic. I hated getting these, they just felt like a massive waste of time. After beating all the stages though, we can finally fight the possessed King Dedede. He's basically how he was in the previous games, only he can charge himself up, which makes him faster and stronger, and he has an absurd amount of health this time. Killing him literally takes 12 hits, while you can only take 6. It's ridiculous, and a lot of the time damage is literally unavoidable because of the way he's positioned. I spent like 20 minutes on this fight. It was so annoying. Okay, until I realized if you leave and come back with the red copy ability, it's actually pretty easy. I recommend Fire. Now, if you didn't get the rainbow drops, the game just ends right there, with Kirby and pals walking through the rain as it says, "The end?" ? But if you did collect them, they form a rainbow sword, and Nightmare emerges, leading to the true final boss, which is somehow 10 times worse than the Dedede fight. You fly around using the rainbow sword to slash him, while he can slash you, charge, shoot beams, or these orbs that you have to avoid. There are so many issues with this fight, so let's go down the list. 1, the hitbox of him touching you to cause damage is really inconsistent. 2, hitting the button 1 time swings the sword twice, and you can't move while it's swinging, so if you hit it too many times by accident, you can't get away. 3, the range of the sword is pretty short. And 4, which is the biggest problem of all, he has 10 times as much health as you. I'm not joking, he has 12 health points, and it takes 5 hits to take out one of them. So you have to hit him 60 times, while he only has to hit you 6. I'm sorry, but that is just inexcusable. How am I supposed to do that consistently? But that's not all, because there's a second phase where he turns into this giant floating eye that shoots lasers. Now his health is fully restored, but yours is not, so I take that back. You don't have to hit him 60 times while getting hit less than 6. You have to hit him 120 times! Are you freaking kidding me? It's nearly impossible to learn the pattern because by this point you have such low health you die almost immediately, and if you get a game over, you have to do the DDD fight all over again. I was seriously on this fight for well over an hour. It wasn't until I got so frustrated that I looked it up online and found out that in the first phase, you can reflect the orbs he shoots at you, which does way more damage. But how was I supposed to figure that out? That's not very easy to do, and if you stand too close to him, it doesn't work. This is a Kirby game. The final boss should not be this difficult. Once you finally take him out, Kirby falls back to the planet and uses the sword to make a new rainbow bridge. That's it. That was so not worth it.
Of Kirby's Dream Land 2, I'm sorry to say it, but I genuinely did not have fun playing this game. At best, it felt like a lesser version of Kirby's Adventure, and at worst, it felt like an extreme test of patience. If you're a die-hard Kirby stan, you might enjoy it more than me, but if not, I say just skip it. I wouldn't really call it a bad game. I just don't like it. I mean, I'm probably not the best person to take this kind of advice from. I mean, I literally just found out yesterday you're supposed to take the wrapper off of the bar of soap before you eat it, not after.